Journalism's all I ever wanted to do. So when I was in high school, I wrote for the student newspaper, and then I joined the high school radio station and did news for them. When I got to college, I signed up right away for the student paper. I did that for 3 or 4 years. I interned at 2 of the TV stations in the market where I was. I left college and did another on-air internship at a small station in Billings, Montana. And I interned at NBC News in Washington, D.C., so I got the very small markets and the very big markets, and ended up going back to school and getting a master's degree in journalism, which may or may not be necessary depending on your circumstances. Really, just going out there and getting the job and doing it is basically your grad school. Got my first job in Lafayette, Indiana, worked there for 2 years, and then came here to Lansing, Michigan, and worked at the NBC affiliate for 3 years, and then went to Grand Rapids and worked at Wood TV for 4 years. Went to Philadelphia and worked for Comcast, doing a local news, and then a news magazine for 2 years. And then I moved back to Lansing because I love it here, and became assistant news director here at WLNS for a year. And after that, the boss left, and I got promoted to news director, and I've been news director for 2 years now.
Now, that's not an on-camera position. So did you miss, think about the different kinds of roles for journalists. What is it that, if I'm a young student, I need to realize that there are different kinds of careers in broadcast?
Absolutely, and the field it's changing so much. It used to be a day where there was the camera person, the reporter, the sound person, the field producer, all that kind of stuff. A lot of that has gone by the wayside. The big trend now is you are your own camera person, you are your own sound person, you're your own reporter, you're your own editor. You end up doing a lot of the work yourself. That said, there are also other opportunities since social media is booming to try and take advantage of that. Lots of people want to be reporters, lots of people want to be on the air. I was one of them. But if you want a job in television right away, I would be a producer. If you love writing, everybody's always looking for producers. If you like the opportunity to not just tell one story, but to put a whole show together, it's a great opportunity that features a lot of writing. You can find a job a lot faster, you can get paid a lot more, and if your goal is to start in a smaller market and move up the ladder, you can move up that ladder and into the big cities a lot faster if you're a producer. I'm always looking for producers. I always say reporters are a dime a dozen and producers are worth their weight in gold. So, like I said, other opportunities. There's an assignment desk. There are some photographers out there. So there are other opportunities in the newsroom as well.
What about the web? Do you now have to keep a webmaster on board? Are there opportunities in that field doing multimedia packages in addition to what goes on air?
I think there are absolutely opportunities with the web and social media. We have 2 people who are devoted to doing that right now here at the station, and I wish I had room for one more. Obviously, Facebook and Twitter are huge, and that's more and more the way people are getting their news nowadays, and we're cognizant of that. A lot of the reporters end up posting their own stories on our website. Facebook is great, but we ultimately want to drive people to our own actual website. But no, that's becoming... for a long time now, is becoming more and more an important part of what we're doing. And mobile is probably the next big thing that as we look ahead to what's in the future. Phones are basically mini computers now, and there's a study, and I don't know the percentage, but it's significant, of people who wake up in the morning, pick up their phone, and check their Facebook and check their email. I mean, they're doing that before they're doing anything else. So we have to be mindful of where that's going. But there are absolutely jobs and opportunities. I'm just about to hire a Michigan State University graduate to be one of our webmasters. It's harder for us in the smaller markets to ask my reporters to shoot their story, write their story, edit their story, and then do a completely different multimedia package for the web. But as you head up into the bigger markets, there are more people who can take advantage of that and do things like that. So that's a really good skill to have, absolutely.
If you were in a college now, what would you do to prepare?
Intern. Like I said, classes are great, books are great. Lots of schools have their own programs where you can get some hands-on experience, and that's all terrific. But there's really no substitute for being in a newsroom, knowing how a newsroom really works, really operates, really runs, getting to go out in the field with folks who can show you how it works and what they do. that's instrumental. It's rare that I would hire anybody who doesn't have any newsroom experience. The other thing is writing. If you can't write, I can't do much for you. Maybe you can be a photographer. That one position does not involve writing. The folks at the assignment desk write stories. The managers write stories. I write stories. The reporters write stories. The VJs write stories. The web people write stories. So if you can't write, like I said, there's not a whole lot else for you to do in a newsroom. So interning is essential, and writing is essential. The rest, we can kind of teach. But trying to teach someone how to write, we don't have time for that kind of thing. You got to figure that out, and like I said, interning and practicing is the best way to get that done.
How do you choose an intern? What do you look for?
Passion. If I see someone who, use my own example, worked for their high school paper or their high school, lots of high schools have their own TV stations now, who's shown an interest up until that point, who knows that this is what they want to do with their life. That's something I absolutely look for. I know that not everybody has figured out what they want to do with their life, but people who have taken advantage of opportunities at school, like MSU's Focal Point or whatever programs their schools offer. Someone who has shown that they have an interest in what we do and has kind of decided that this is what they want to do. And again, classwork and everything is fine. Again, I just need to see some kind of interest, not just in being on TV, but a real passion for the news in kind of whatever its form. Print is fine as long as you love the news. TV is fine as long as you love the news. The web is fine as long as you love the news. So it helps when that person does have some writing experience and a little bit of background, because the more an intern can do, the more responsibility we can give them, and I think ultimately the more fruitful their internship is going to be. But someone who really loves the news and loves journalism and is passionate about it, that's probably the top thing I look for.
What does TV news in a local market look for in its stories? What kinds of stories do you want people to be passionate about?
Right. Two things. One, you mentioned it, local. Because there is so much news everywhere and at your fingertips and on your computer and on your phone, people can find out national and international news anywhere. New York Times, CNN, MSNBC, Fox, newspapers, websites, anything. You want to know the sports scores and what happened for the NHL or NFL or NBA? Again, there's ESPN and there's all kinds of outlets for you to figure out what's going on. The one thing that I think is going to make us stand out is being local. There aren't many places where you can go to find out what's happening at your city hall or to find out who won your kid's high school basketball game. So the one thing that I think is really going to be our saving grace is the fact that we're dedicated and devoted to local news. The other thing is enterprise reporting. Yes, there are good stories to be had from the wires and from press releases, but I think the thing that really is going to help us stand out as a station, help you stand out as a reporter or a producer, is the ability to find and tell stories that nobody else is doing. If all we're doing is copying out of the paper, people are going to catch on pretty quick and then just read the paper. So we need to, again, enterprise and find out good stories that nobody else is doing and tell them first. And I think, especially when you're doing that at a local level, again, people aren't going to get those stories anywhere else. And that's why it's our responsibility to find those stories and tell them.
It's a very competitive business, and if I were a student nowadays, are the jobs out there? What do I do to make myself competitive?
Right. The jobs are out there. It's a lot better now, actually, than it was just a few years ago. I'm in the process of hiring 6 different people, and while I'm doing this interview, there's a gal waiting outside my office who I'm interviewing for a job right now. So if you're looking for one of those jobs, again, experience, even in the form of internships, is essential. The more skills you have, the better. You need to know how to write, as I said before. If you do have some web experience, if you're skilled at social media, if you know how to shoot, the more you can do, the more versatile you are, the easier it is for me to find some use for you. If you speak another language, boy, that'd be terrific. Around here, Spanish would be great, but if you want to work in, New York or Seattle, or, obviously Spanish in California, but, Chinese, probably a good choice, So, again, having some kind of experience, knowing a little bit, at least a little bit about everything. The more you know, I think, and the more versatile you are, the easier it's going to be to bring you on and find you a job.
Some of the students have come to me and they have their own blogs, they're doing their own YouTubes, and they're using either Livestream or Ustream to do their own original programming from campus. Is that the kind of thing that would impress you?
It kind of depends on the work. The fact that they blog may or may not be, depending on what's in the blog. The fact that they put a show on is great. For me, depends what kind of show. If people put on an entertainment show, I appreciate the fact that they can shoot and do that kind of thing, but I'd rather go to someone's channel, YouTube channel, and see some news stories that they've done, because ultimately that's what I'm looking for. Having the skills is great, absolutely, but to be able to pull that kind of thing off, but ultimately I need someone who's going to mesh with what I need them to be able to do. But yeah, it's someone who has their own YouTube channel or Ustream and is taking advantage of that. That certainly doesn't hurt, and I think, all other things being equal, I'd probably take that person over the person who didn't have it.
Now, we're still in a recession, but yet you're adding people. Is that good news economically? Is advertising coming back to the news business?
Right. Well, at our station, we were in bankruptcy for a couple of years until about last year. So, and now that we've come out of bankruptcy, our company is in an exceedingly good position. So, it's hard for me to answer that from a kind of a whole broadcast news perspective. Things are good here. I think things are looking up overall. The economy hopefully will continue its slow climb and maybe climb faster. But like I said, things are much better than they were a few years ago. More people are hiring now than they were a few years ago. And frankly, in this age of VJs or MMJs or one-man bands, whatever you want to call them, I've noticed that people are moving up the ladder a lot faster. College graduates are starting in much bigger markets than they used to, because they can go to a bigger market where they can A, do everything, and B, do it at half the price of the old fogies who have been around for 50 years and can't shoot their own stuff. We don't do that here, but that's been a trend too. So I've seen some very young people start in some very big markets. Obviously, they have talent to be able to pull that off, but if you have those skills, it's not as hard to climb the ladder as it used to be.
You can still make a living at a local market, however. I mean, you're not going to make the $33,000 an hour that Katie Couric does, but I don't think that's the starting pay here.
Right. No, certainly not. I remember there's a story about, and it might just be anecdotal, but a news director who was looking for someone to hire and saw a reference from the station he used to work at 20 years ago, called the reference, talked to the news director and say, hey, out of curiosity, I used to work there. What does that job pay now? And it paid exactly what it paid 20 years ago. It depends on the market, depends on the station. Around here, I think we do pretty well. The starting reporters here in Lansing make a lot more than when I started. Still, it's not a lot, and I realize that people are going to do a couple of years here and then move on. But it's certainly enough to live on, and I like to think we do okay.
A lot of the one closing question I'd like to get at is that it seems a lot of reporters too, after they do that 1 or 2 year, many of them move into PR because they have really good skills to help an organization or a corporation tell their story. So that's an alternative route, isn't it, into those jobs?
Not only is it an alternative route, I think PR, former reporters make the best PR people. And I was recently speaking to a bunch of PR people and said, okay, how many former reporters do we have here? And a whole lot of them raised their hand. I think if you're a PR person, it's great to learn the things you learn in school, but a good PR person knows that, a former reporter turned PR person knows not to call me at 4:30 when I'm trying to get a 5 and 6 o'clock show on. If they're smart, they'll call me right before my morning meeting starts, so I'm kind of they're top of mind as we go in and decide what we want to talk about for the day. A former TV reporter, anyway, will know that good visuals are essential, that a character is essential, and that just because you call a press conference and you stick 2 guys in front of a podium with a microphone and you think we're all going to show up. We may or may not, depending on what the situation is, but there are things that can be done to improve the odds, and I think former reporters, they know the nature of the beast, and that's why I think they make really good PR people.